George Norrie is our guest, and that was my next question for him. That's where he went before I even asked it. They're saying get ready for a, quote, metastasization. That was the Justice Department 2 days ago in the Associated Press. It's like the war on drugs. It'll never end. So the border basically stays wide open, and these terrorists have Facebooks and say what they're going to do time and time again. They're on no-fly list because good parts of agencies put them on there. Then they're still allowed to fly around. It's clear they're being used, radical Islamicists and others, to take our freedoms. Meanwhile, Homeland Security admits their main training is for veterans, gun owners, libertarians, conservatives, which in the Justice Department's own crime statistics have the lowest level of antisocial behavior and criminal activity. I mean, you can go to a Tea Party event, folks, and drop a wallet with $1,000 in it in the middle of them. Nobody's taking it. Everybody knows that. And these implications in the news, the Tea Party's going to kill cops. They're going to blow stuff up. Get ready for the bombs. If they ever start staging this stuff and saying the Tea Party did it, it's pretty obvious. I mean, George, you're a newsman. Before you got to talk radio 20 years ago, they're at the Nighthawk out of St. Louis, and were then #1, and then got picked up to host Coast to Coast. And you've done a fabulous job since Art Bell retired, I should add. And took the show, I think, in a great direction of covering more politics and analysis, and also the fun stuff, the interesting stuff, because I like to hear about comets and, you know, what an old lady saw in her backyard. But looking at this, isn't it obvious, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, give me your take on this, when they're like, patriots are going to blow stuff up, patriots are going to nuke a city, you know, those conservatives, they're terrorists, and there's none of it going on, nothing happening, no evidence. You covered Oklahoma City when it happened, clearly bare minimum, a provocateur, false flag. But in your own words, they're getting us ready, they say, for a war with the Tea Party as if we're the terrorist. I mean, how ominous is that, where they're trying to criminalize opposition to socialism in this country? Do you get concerned they could stage false flags and blame it on patriots?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, I'm not, as you well know, Alex, I don't think that there's a conspiracy under every rock. But they do happen, and you do have to investigate it, and you do have to weigh the possibilities. I mean, for example, years ago in the 50s, I mean, they sprayed biologicals over the people of St. Louis, testing it. And they denied it for years until we uncovered it, 7, 8, 9 years ago. They tested and sprayed sailors and ships. They are capable of doing anything they need to do to upend this world. And here's the sad part of the whole thing. If we had a perfect world, a perfect planet, where everybody got along, that there were no wars, there were no problems, I am convinced that the elitists would create terrorism, would create wars just to keep the apple cart upended, just to keep the industrial military complex profitable. And that's the sad part of all this, because you just don't know anymore who to trust, who to go through. You know, you and I, if you and I were running countries and we got together and went out and got a drink and came back and settled everything, and, you know, we began building a great planet for each other, there's going to be somebody else out there that says, wait a minute, how do we get involved? How do we profit from this? So they have ended, Norrie and Jones have ended terrorism across the planet, so we better do it. And because of that, I don't think it'll ever end. It'll never end.
That's extremely poignant and central. There was a report, I think 2 years ago, out of a major British think tank. I forget the exact headline. I think it was like top geopolitical expert, governments want crises. And it was a big report with a bunch of experts breaking it down, proving cases where North Korea, China, the U.S., Russia, they all do it, Israel, Mexico, will stir up a crisis or make it worse so special interests can get no-bid contracts. I mean, it really comes down to just corrupt interests that don't even have an ideology. They just want power and control, are there doing everything they can to stir the pot. Look at George Soros trying to fund the stuff against the police. And obviously, there are bad cops and there is corruption. But those bad cops in Albuquerque just got charged, who clearly, I think, executed that guy. But at the same time, the attempt to scapegoat the police, the system knows, Soros knows, Congress has an 8% approval rating, 80+% don't trust the government in the Gallup poll. So if you can make it about the cops and then attack them, then you're not going to get any reform. But if you hype everybody up, if Soros uses money to get people to try to, create a good government, it would probably work. So it shows how spiders like him make their money out of crises and out of war economies like he did in World War II, doing what he did to his own people. So he's just repeating what he knows. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, George.
No, that's absolutely true. But the bottom line here, Alex, on this subject is you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your family. I happen to be a concealed weapons permit holder. Works well in Missouri, doesn't work for me at all in California. But you got to protect your family and do what you have to do. And that is something that you have been pounding away at for so many years. And, the day's going to come, whether the power grid goes out, something we've been pushing as a campaign, something is going to happen way beyond the things that are happening right now. And people need to be ready for it, or there's going to be a calamity beyond anything you can imagine.
Now, I want to shift gears and talk about something that I know you're really an expert on. You've looked at every angle. I tune in 3 or 4 times a week when I'm staying up late, or I listen when 5:90 a.m. re-airs you at like 8 at night now, which is great because I usually go to bed about 10 or 11 and then get up at about 6 a.m. But when I do stay up later, I'm on a road trip, I listen, and or I listen to the podcast. But you've written Someone is Hiding Something with another great writer and researcher. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about criticalhealthnews.com, a really exciting site that you've launched. But before we go there, I want to move quickly through a bunch of different articles with you, George. You cool to do that?
Let's do it.
My next point was this. You just magically brought up we should all be armed before I asked it. Newsmax, Europe's leading rabbi let Jews carry guns for protection. Well, yeah, they do in Israel. Why not let everybody in Europe carry a gun, and then you wouldn't see stuff like this, just like the head of Interpol said last year. Arm people, and you won't see these Kenya shopping mall shootings. So it does show some sanity is starting to come out.
It's starting. I mean, I have always said, look, the criminals or the element that wants to get you will get a gun. They will find the gun. So the average citizen, the good guy, the good woman, she doesn't go to some clandestine person to buy a handgun. She'll go to a legitimate dealer. Give her the right. Give him the right to do that. Don't try to sequester them. Don't try to stop them from doing that. Everybody who is a law-abiding person who doesn't have mental illness should be able to get a gun in this country and on this planet.
I agree. CIA finds no wrongdoing in agency search of computers used by the Senate investigators. They violated the Fourth Amendment. They violated the branches of government. Now they've investigated themselves and say they did nothing. I mean, clearly this is about blackmailing Congress. If they can get away with this, the sky's the limit.
They've gotten away with it, not only with this, Alex, but so many other things. Let's go back to the JFK assassination. The CIA understood. They knew about it. They may have had some people as part of it. They tried to do in Fidel Castro. They have had their hands on everything. Look, we need a great intelligence service. We're a country, and there are other countries out there that hate us. We need to have great intelligence. But, man, don't turn yourselves on us. We're the good people, Do what you got to do with the former KGB folks and stuff like that. But don't spy on Americans or do what you have to do to Congress. And it's despicable.
And it's totally illegal. This is what third world countries do. They end up having their intelligence service take over. And this is what Caesar did with his legions 2,040-something years ago. I mean, we know where this goes. Another story. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to simply round it up by saying that they have this feeling as if they're gods and that there's nothing that anyone can do to stop them.
That's what it comes down to in the final equation. Another story. What do you think's going on here with the purges of the military brass, the purges of the Navy SEALs and Army Special Operations, the purges now of Secret Service people? That's really creepy as well.
That is creepy. Is there incompetence where some of these people need to be let go? Maybe. But I think there's a different agenda afoot here. I haven't put my finger on it yet, because they do seem to be ousting some pretty darn good people. And, you know, it takes years to train great Navy SEALs and a good Secret Service agent. There's something going on here. There's something afoot. It's like they need to get them out of the picture for some reason.
Well, Dan Bongino was the head guy on foreign detail, so he was, you know, really being promoted up towards the very top of the organization. He was already near the top. And he said, look, I can't violate my confidence. I've signed the agreements. But he said here repeatedly, he said, it's so incredible, you wouldn't believe it. And well, we know from FBI agents that worked in the White House and others, the kind of stuff that was going on with Hillary. And, I mean, it's just these people, it is so scary. And then you see Petraeus, who, as a general, did some pretty good operations. I'm not defending these wars, but was a pretty good